There is no world-class coach in the world that plays any sport that does not review game film. There is no world-class athlete in the world that does not review game film. It's game time, game film. Game time, game film. Because by reviewing the game film and being able to see yourself outside of yourself, you can actually improve every single day, right? Every single sport. We say at Rilla that sales is a sport where you have amazing coaches and amazing players, and you need to be able to see what's going on in the field to actually give them feedback, because the problem in home service and home improvement sales and service is that
Hey, what's up, To The Point listeners? It's your boy, Chris Yano, the host of To The Point Home Services Podcast. And absent today is my co-host, Chad Peterman. So we have free reign to say whatever we want about Chad today. Not that I would hold back anyway, but my guest and I will have free reign to just bust his chops while he's not here to defend himself, any of those things. You know what? And because Chad takes it so well, he won't say anything. He'll just say, "That's nice," or "Thank you."
Yeah.
I have my buddy, my friend, and actually podcast sponsor, Rilla, Sebastian Jimenez, from CEO of Rilla Voice, founder and CEO of Rilla Voice, who I've become friends with.
Hi.
Yeah, and you remember where I could tell you where we met. See if you remember where we met originally, first time
At Pantheon
That's
with
right.
Gary V. Yeah.
That's right. So that was the first time we actually had met, and it was just ironic that Gary was coming because you did like the random offsite keynote, like invite only thing, which was like one of the first. Remember, I was like, dude, you have some massive balls to do that at a Pantheon.
Yeah. Nobody knew who we were, so we had to make some noise. We had to make a splash, and so then people knew our name. So it worked out. But it was one of the. Oh my God! If that didn't go well, man. Oh my God! We spent so much money on getting Gary there for like a few hours, and he was so pissed off. You remember, because Aaron Rodgers had hurt his ankle or whatever, and he's like a fan of the people who play football in New York. I don't know what the name is. I don't watch. I'm not American. I'm Dominican. The Aaron Rodgers plays in a team that they throw the ball in New York. I don't know which one it is. And Gary was very upset about this. And he was like, "Listen, man, I was not going to come here, okay? Like, I was going to dip out." That's my Gary V impersonation. It sounds very nasally.
Well, it sounds different than that. Well, because if you remember, what I did was once I heard he was coming, I texted him. And I said, "Hey, dude, I'm at the exact same event." And then that's when he texted me and said, "Man, I'm like, I was trying to figure out how to get out of this thing because I'm so tired about Aaron Rodgers, who plays for the Jets, the New York Jets."
That one, yes.
So that's when we originally met, was there, and the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah, that was a fun time, right?
Yeah, it was great. And the cool thing is it was my first real introduction into like the whole virtual ride along world, you know? And so, because I've heard you speak multiple times now, we've got to spend plenty of time together, and we actually have quite a few mutual clients, and I've gotten to understand what it is more. I'm such a believer, because it's a great coaching tool. And that's the way I think you have to really approach this, because, and we'll get into some of these details on like, what some objections I can see when a business tries to get it and implement it, like some of those things. But it's a fantastic coaching tool, if implemented correctly or implemented at all.
Yeah.
But then that's a good, and which is the whole reason that it made sense to have you come and participate in your first Rhino X, earlier this year. Yeah. And we brought in, you got in and interviewed Coach Saban, and I mean, arguably the best coach in football history. The sport you don't know.
Yeah. That one. I know that. I know him because I read his book. So I know Alabama football, man. Roll Tide. I know all the things about it because I read the book. But the New York Jetsons, I don't know those very well. I don't know the New York Jets.
To all our listeners that are our football fans, I apologize for the disrespect that this Dominican is bringing to
I know baseball, dude. Big Papi, dude. That's my jam. Let's do baseball, baby. We don't play American football down in my island, dude. We baseball, baby. Pedro Martinez and Big Papi, man. That's what we roll, man.
Well, hey, to all our listeners who've never heard Sebastian before, he lacks energy and enthusiasm. You can tell.
Yeah.
So I want to get into something real quick. And by the way, this is something that I still think is very, very underutilized in businesses of any
Hmm.
size. By the way, not just small businesses, big, like of all sizes. So, and I want to be able to talk about maybe what some of your thoughts on why or hangups on
Yeah.
why. But I want to say that your Pantheon, Pantheon's coming up in a few months, and you came in like I think you're like the biggest
That is
sponsor
correct.
at
That
Pantheon.
is correct.
Was that the price you had to pay because you fucked them last year doing an offsite keynote in the middle
Yes,
of the
that was my apology gift to ServiceTime. The ServiceTime events team, we love you guys. We love you guys so much. It's our Big Daddy ServiceTime. We are like their problem child, and we're running around, and we had to bring a gift back to Big Daddy ServiceTime to make them happy after we pissed them off the first time
Big
around.
Daddy Wow. Well,
Yeah,
I'll see you there, man. So,
yeah.
I'll be a part of two of the breakout sessions this time around. We'll obviously have a lot of representation there. I'm excited to see everybody that goes to that too, but I'll be excited to hang out with you again.
Yeah, that'll be a
And
fun time. We have a lot of fun stuff planned at Pantheon. We have like three different events that are happening. We are not doing it offshoot. We're not doing it like Blackwater Pirates and like getting in. We are sponsored by the Armada today. So so we are doing it right there in Pantheon. We have a lot of cool stuff happening. A lot of our customers are going to be talking about how they implement virtual ride-alongs in their businesses, and it's going to be a fun time. So I'm excited for it.
yeah. I will say that you're an industry leader
Thank you.
in this world. And what's cool about it is once you and I got to meet, I flew to Dallas, Texas to go meet with our largest, at Rhino, our largest roofing company
Yes.
is K-Post Roofing
Yes.
down in Texas, $140 million roofing organization. And when I was there, their residential GM was listening to one of the Rilla
They call it Rilla. They
voice.
call it Rilla. That one of the Rillas.
One of the Rillas, like, and I was like, "What in the hell?" So I was like, "I just met this dude like 3 weeks ago."
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like a cool. But then he was explaining to me how they're using it because there's so many door knockers and things like that, in roofing, and they were trying to keep track of one their productivity, but also what are they saying because that's the big piece. And then I was really interested in like, well, how do these sales guys take that?
Yeah.
Like, because it keeps you real honest because you can't you could say something wrong, but you're clearly going to get, busted for it. But if somebody's paying attention to the coaching notes, or going back and listening to the recording or whatever. So what I want to do is I want our listeners to know, right up front, the reason Sebastian is here is because this product is working and working well for those who implement it and use it correctly.
Yes.
Okay. Kind of like anything that you implement, but for our listeners' sake, Sebastian, just go ahead and let them kind of know, like give the elevator pitch on Rilla so they understand the services, and then we'll get into the details of how it's being implemented, any hiccups, wins, losses, whatever.
Yeah, perfect. So for those of you who haven't heard yet, Rilla is the leading virtual ride-along software for the home improvement industry. And what that means is when you send technicians out there, comfort advisors, design consultants, and they talk to homeowners in the home, they will literally be recording their conversation on their phones via the Rilla mobile app, and we will be using AI to automatically transcribe, analyze, and give them feedback to help them improve their service, their sales, and to help their sales managers or service managers do what we call virtual ride-alongs that are 100 times faster, better, and more productive than physical ride-alongs. And so that is what Rilla is. It's essentially assistant sales manager that goes out there and does a bunch of ride-alongs for you so you can see what's happening every single day, every single time that your reps are out there talking to customers. That's what Rilla does.
You want to know what's interesting? Thanks for doing that. What's interesting is something that I'd noticed about you is when you're in like old school Sebastian the comic mode, the one that didn't pan out. Like, the way that you talk to me is different, but when you actually go into talking about the business, you become very programmatic. Like you start talking like a little bit differently. When you present, it's the same thing, but you still have like enthusiasm. So you kind of like marry the two together.
You were surprised at Saban. You were like, "Oh wow, he could talk like that." I thought he was going to say some bullshit, and I did the whole Nick Saban thing.
Dude, at Saban, you were completely different, and you crushed. that one. Like, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was so like taken back by like, I was like, damn, like he did so good on prepping for this
Yeah.
and asking away and provoking him to ask the
Yeah.
right questions and relating to the home
I
services
put my
industry, you know,
tech
because
founder voice. That's my tech founder voice when I go into like my little visionary with the turtleneck kind of thing, with like the Steve Jobs
oh,
thing.
got it.
That's the Steve Jobs juju. You have to bring up your tech founder, you know?
Got it. Well, we'll just see how many of those versions of you we can get on this
Yeah,
one episode.
multiple personality disorder, ladies and gentlemen, right here on the Rhino X podcast. Seeing a man lose his mind on air.
Another cool, you know, for a lot of our listeners, they know who Dave Geiger is, and obviously Geiger's been using you for
Oh
quite a
yeah.
while, or his organization had used you for quite a while, and then obviously, you know, Tommy Mello, same thing. Like I know he's, you and Tommy have a great relationship too,
Yep.
and me and you played a little duck hunt over there at
Yes.
Tommy's house
Yes.
on the arcade.
Yeah, and you asked me to tell you a joke because I said I was a former stand-up comedian, and you said, "Can you tell me a joke?" And I told you what I thought was a joke, and you were just like, "Damn, dude, it's really good that you transitioned. It's really good that you went into tech. It's really good that you left that behind. That was not funny. That was painful." Yeah.
Yeah, it was terrible. So you made a really good pivot.
Yeah.
So let me ask this question because
Yes.
we talked, you know, kind of joked about you having been a former comedian, like, and what the heck made you transition to to this? Like, this is such a hard pivot, you know,
Yeah.
to this, and then maybe they give the listeners just a little bit of history on timeline so they can kind of have a frame of reference of how long
Yeah.
you've been doing this and studying the data to support the home services and home improvement
Yeah,
industry.
it's a great question. So I'm from the Dominican Republic, a long line of pineapple farmers. I moved to America when I was 17 years old. My parents were sick of me, and they sent me to this Jesuit school in Miami so that they could take away the demons. So I went to this Jesuit school in Miami, graduated high school, and then I went to NYU for college, this New York University. When you go to NYU, you're just like thinking every day, how can I piss off my parents today? Because you're in New York City, you're 18 years old, you're like, I'm gonna piss off my parents in New York City. And so the way I did that, a lot of people, they just skip class, go to Urban Outfitters, go shopping. I didn't do any of that. I had no money. So the way I spent my time to piss off my parents was by skipping class and doing stand-up comedy. And my degree says that I have a business degree. Oh, yes, business, balance sheets, spreadsheets. Oh, yes. I know nothing about, business that I didn't learn from stand-up because I never went to class. Principles of financial accounting happened at 8 a.m. in the morning, and I was sleeping because my comedy ended at like 4 or 5 a.m. So I was sleeping. So everything I learned about business, I learned from stand-up. Just a few things. Number one, stand-up is one of the few art forms that you have to practice in front of a crowd. Music, writing, painting, poetry, you could do that in your room and spend all your time alone in the room. You cannot do that with stand up. As soon as you have an idea, you have to go out there and launch the idea, and you have to fail the idea. Even the best jokes start as bad jokes, like the one I told you that night. And so, what you have to do is you have to be completely shameless, try the joke, fail the joke, and then in that failure, the magic of the comedian comes because they understand the failure, they learn from it, they iterate it, they tweak it, and they do the same joke a few different times, and then they find the rhythm of the joke, and then they find it. And so, when I was a junior in college, this Forbes author was interviewing a bunch of tech founders. He needed somebody who was funny to write up funny articles on his interviews, and the way these tech founders describe building their companies, their startups, was very similar to me to what I was doing in stand-up comedy, which is they have a product, an idea, they launch it, it fails very quickly. They call it a minimum viable product in technology. How quickly can you get something out there in the hands of the users? Minimum viable, it means it sucks. It's some crap, like a crappy joke. You get it in, it fails, you learn from the failure, you bring it back to the drawing board, and then you keep tweaking and tweaking and tweaking and tweaking and tweaking until you find product market fit, until it's just magic. The product just works, right? That's every single major technology that you've ever heard of. Apple, Amazon, it started as a minimum viable product. It sucked. They kept working in it, failing and failing and failing. And so when I found that, I was like, I'm pretty much addicted to doing that every single day. In stand up, I was doing 6 shows a day, 7 days a week. Every single week, I was trying to come up with 3 new minutes of material. So I was like, what if I just transitioned this obsession into trying to build tech products? And so when I graduated college, I said, I'm going to do that.
That makes sense, right? You just go from comedian to
it made all the sense it made so much sense to me. I was like, let's do it. And when I graduated college, I said, do I do tech or do I do stand up? And in my mind, I was like, if I do stand up, I'm just going to keep doing stand up. But if I do tech, because I know nothing about tech, I'm going to fail very quickly. And if the worst comes to worst, I'm just going to fail and come out with a lot of good material and go back to stand up about my misadventures as a wannabe tech founder. So that was in 2018 when I graduated college. And we're still waiting for me to fall flat on my face and go back to stand up because we're here and we're growing and we're learning and improving. And so to answer your second part of your question, we started Rilla back in 2019. So October 2019 is when we incorporated the company. Our first 3 years of business, 2019 to 2022, it was just us going out of business. Zero, nothing. Like people talk about their first year in business, like, yeah, we only made like $40,000. We made $0 our first 3 years in business. $0. And we were literally, me and my co-founders were eating like from one can of beans. People like romanticize the startup garage, that's in California, man. Like the California rich, they have it different. They go to we had like a shitty apartment in New York. It's just crappy, like no lights. We were living in a studio apartment that we turned into a 3-bedroom. All of us had girlfriends. It was a disaster. It was a humanitarian crisis. And it was like one can of Goya beans being passed around. And first 3 years of business made no money. And it took us a while until we found product market fit. I was just telling Jackie from ServiceTitan on our podcast that a lot of tech founders struggle because they obsess about product exclusively. But in technology and in any business, you really have to obsess about market first. And if you find great markets are the ones that produce great products because the markets pull everything. And you probably saw something similar with you. You started with roofing, found this great market of home services, right? Similar to us, first home service company that we sold to was the StormGuard roofing company. We started in roofing and we saw that this need of being able to train and coach salespeople was so pressing for the roofers that we started growing in roofing. And then after roofing, we got into exterior remodeling, right? Dave Geiger, PJ Fitzpatrick. He met me because of that. PJ Fitzpatrick started using Rilla, one of the early adopters. And Dave told me, he's like, Sebastian, have you ever thought of HVAC sales? And I was like, HVAC, what does that mean? You know what I mean? I was like, what is HVAC? And he brought me to, one of his little shops in the Carolinas. Obviously, Dave is the founder and CEO of Horizon Services, so he's a great champion to have from the very beginning. And so, he's not the CEO of Horizon. He was the founder of Horizon Services. Now he's not the CEO, former. But yeah. So, and then the rest is history, and here we are. So
yeah. So then let's do this. But you talked about the years where you made $0. Well, that's not where you are now.
Yeah.
You have actually pretty well, which is great. So maybe what we can do is just give the listeners like a who's like, one, maybe just share roughly like how many customers you guys are serving today for some perspective, but then maybe what are the industries? Like, is there any particular industry that you focus on? Is it industry agnostic? Like, maybe share that part.
Yeah. So Rilla, we started selling in January 2022. We went from 0 to about $11 million of annual recurring revenue in our first 2 years. So the first year we went from 0 to 1.4, then we went from 1.4 to 11.2. That made us one of the fastest growing startups in the world right now and in history. Because Figma, Salesforce went from 0 to 5, Figma went from 0 to 4, Apple went from 0 to 8, and now we're nearing about 20 million or above 20 million of ARR, annual recurring revenue, and we serve about over 1,000 contractors. And not just any contractors, but when I think contractors, I think of like the umbrella company that owns a bunch of companies as well. So some of our we work with like the top contractors in the country, like TurnPoint Home Services is a customer, FH Fur, who's part of Apex, Southern Air is a customer, A1 Garage is a customer, Aaron Gaynor with Eco Plumbers, right? Peterman Brothers, your co-host, is a customer. Hoffman Brothers is a customer. If you look at, we're in all of the states in America except Alaska now. We're coming for Alaska. Alaska, we're coming. We're even in Hawaii. Aloha Plumbing. We love you guys. I'm gonna go. Yeah. So we have customers in 49 of the 50 states and tens of thousands of managers and technicians and salespeople using Rilla today. And we have, I don't even know how many. Like last time I checked in April or March, we had like 2 million conversations recorded on Rilla. It's like 2 million hours of audio of in-home conversations. I don't know how many we have now, so I need to check again. But yeah, a lot of millions of conversations. Yes.
So it seems like then really, well, one, congratulations, man. Like that's pretty awesome story. And a lot of fast growth.
Yes.
And like you're talking about how like sometimes we can overcomplicate product, and we don't think about like you focus too much on product, but not the market,
Yes.
and then how to actually let the market put product into it. And so I commend you for figuring that out quick, because a lot of people don't get out of that rat
Yeah.
race. But you said then, if I heard you correctly, like the majority of the people that you're serving are contractors. And by the way, when some of these people who don't recognize those names, he's talking about some of the private equity platforms that own a bunch of different contractors, as well as serving individual contractors themselves.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
to me, it seems like really anyone who has like a sales team
Yes.
who's going to anywhere to sell something, this would be something that you
1000%.
could use it for.
Anybody who's doing outside
Okay.
sales or service, servicing customers in some human capacity, absolutely.
Got it. So it's recording their, their pitch call, their sales pitch or whatever it is, like with the potential candidate or the potential or the prospect or whatever. And then it's feeding that information
Yes.
back into, yeah. Okay. So, and we'll get to that, but let me ask this question, because I guarantee you somebody's thinking it
Yeah.
right now. And that is, yeah, like my salesperson does not want to hear themselves be recorded.
Correct.
Right? That's got to be like
Oh,
one objections
1000%.
is like, why don't you record?
That's the main
So
thing. That's the main thing.
So I have an answer to this, and I'm going to give it a shot. And by the way, like I didn't set this up, okay, listeners. Like I literally think that I have an answer to this, and the reason I do is because Sebastian and I talked about it, and I'm going to see if you remember. We talked about this while you were at Rhino X, because this is where it made so much sense to me that we brought in Coach Saban.
Yeah.
Right, and it was a coach, the coaches type of Rhino X. Like we brought in the best coach to coach all these other leaders on the things that he's learned to be so successful.
Yeah.
So the way that I viewed Rilla was, and keep in mind, like I have a sales background too, and I have a sales team. And so when I think through, well, what would they complain about? Well, maybe not my team, but other teams would complain about like feeling why you want to record me? Like, you don't trust me, or, what they're really thinking is if you record me, they're going to catch me saying something wrong.
Yeah.
But the objection of saying, well, I don't want somebody to record me, I think it comes in how you position it, right? Like it's not a way to keep an eye on you. It's a way to coach you. If I can hear what you're saying, right or wrong, it gives me the opportunity to hear it, review it with you, the salesperson, and use it as a coaching tool to make you better for you, which makes you better for the company. That's the way you would approach it. And I think that's the way you meant it, right? Like that's what it's supposed to do, is it's supposed to help you with that. And then all the technology behind it kind of helps with the, with the creating the system or the process, to use, like the tools to use. But the theory is, this is a coaching tool. Maybe no, the fact is it's a coaching tool.
Yeah.
It's not a keep an eye on tool.
Well, yeah. So that is how we pitch it. That's what it is, right? We had Coach Saban there. One of the things he talks about is like how many hours he spent reviewing game film. There is no world-class coach in the world that plays any sport that does not review game film. There is no world-class athlete in the world that does not review game film. It's game time, game film. Game time, game film. Because by reviewing the game film and being able to see yourself outside of yourself, you can actually improve every single day, right? Every single sport. We say at Rilla that sales is a sport where you have amazing coaches and amazing players, and you need to be able to see what's going on in the field to actually give them feedback, because the problem in home service and home improvement sales and service is that the coach is never on the field when the game is going on, because the only way to do that is to do a physical ride along, and that only happens like 2% of the time. Like how many times do your reps go out there without a ride along? It's most of the time. And so it's like asking Coach Saban, hey, coach your players, without actually seeing what happened in the game during game time. It's impossible. It's weird, but we accept it as the norm, even though that's like the entire top line of your entire business is coming from that conversation. And you have no way to, you're tracking your marketing with leads, you're tracking your call center, you're tracking your dispatching, you're tracking your fleet. People use fleet, like, you know what I mean? Samsara helps you track your fleet. You're tracking everything up until the most important moment of your entire business, when you're talking to the homeowner and actually try to make that, 25,000 replacement sale, trying to make that UV light, upsell. You're trying to have that great customer service, great customer interaction. You're not tracking any of that. Rilla allows you to put eyes and ears in the field so that you could actually coach your reps to be better. Every single time that we've launched Rilla with any customer, and we have a lot of customers already, every single time we've launched, the resistance is always comes at first from the salespeople and the technicians, right? It doesn't come from the homeowner. We have customers in 2-party states, people, like they literally, the contractors tell them we're going to be recording the conversation. There's no problem. Customers, I had a customer in Castle Rock, Colorado. They have been recording conversations way before, since Rilla, like manually, since 2014. And they told me, like, after COVID, nobody cares. After COVID, like, people, like, I'm recording with my Ring cameras, I'm recording you with my Alexa. I don't care. Like, absolutely, go ahead and record whatever you want. The resistance is always from the sales team and the service team. And what happens is this thing in psychology we call it's called the Hawthorne effect. The Hawthorne effect is when people know that they're being reviewed or recorded or scrutinized by somebody else, their fight or flight senses are activated. So they're very nervous, and that's what happens with they're very fearful, very nervous. For contractors, imagine when you're bringing up a technician to a role play in front of everybody. They literally have stage fright. It's public speaking fear. That's the Hawthorne effect. What happens after a few hours of experiencing exposure to this fear of being recorded and being reviewed, the fear goes away because your brain literally gets tired of being in fight or flight. It literally gives up and was like, okay, after the first week of being on Rilla, the reps who record more than 5 conversations get completely eased into it. They're like, okay, I forget it's even there. And then once they are on a month in Rilla, 2 months in Rilla, they start seeing those numbers go up slowly but surely. You know, my average tickets, my conversion rates, because I'm following the process. I have a coach in my pocket that's telling me exactly what I need to be doing to improve. I can review my own game film, review the top performers in my team. Then usually about 80% of the team gets on board within the first 2 months. And then after the third month, you pretty much make it a new standard. So every single time that we've seen it, there's that resistance, but you just have to overcome that resistance. So.
Got it. What else? What other resistance do you see?
Well, for the sales managers and the service managers, this isn't new. This is a new workflow, right? It's like before I used to do a physical ride along, and now I'm going to be doing a virtual ride along. That's a new workflow. Like, and so you have to. It's like whenever. Have you seen the movie Moneyball, Chris?
Yeah, Brad Pitt.
Yeah, with Brad Pitt. So for contractors, anybody's listening who hasn't watched that movie, this movie explains what the problem is or the resistance is when we bring Rilla from the management capacity. It's like that scene where Brad Pitt is talking about numbers and talking about data and talking about the people we're going to recruit, and all the recruiters in the baseball team are like, "What the hell are you talking about? That guy is a drug addict. That guy can't even run. He has a bad leg. He can't run, and he has no legs." And he's like, "No. But look at the numbers here." And he has a little data scientist in the room called Pete, and he keeps pointing at him. It's like, "Pete, tell me about the KPIs of this person," because in that movie, what they tell is the story of how they brought the power of data analytics and data science to sports to be able to make data-driven decisions. What happens when you bring Rilla to your managers is that they now have to become very adept at making data-driven decisions when it comes to conversations, right? So it's like, now I'm not coaching you based on my intuition, based on what works for me or what I think works. I now have this tool that helps me see all these numbers, and I have to get really, really good with these numbers so that I can actually coach you based on the reality of what's going on in your conversations. Like, and naturally what happens is some managers are much more adept at doing this, so they rise up the ranks. It's like with any new technology, right? Like back in the days, if you were really tall and you were 6'7", and somebody would give you a sword and you would be the best warrior, right? And now the best warrior is a tiny little kid who's really good with his thumbs because he can fly a drone and kill everybody, right? So like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like skill sets, right? Like technology breeds different skill sets. And so this technology breeds a different kind of management style where it's much more data driven, much more numbers driven. We're going to sit down, we're going to look at your talk metrics, your talk ratio, how much are you talking versus the customer, your talk speed, how fast you talk, like literally words per minute. You talk, there's an ideal words per minute that you should talk in a sales call between 180 and 200. So you have to keep them accountable to that. Following your process, you can now measure how compliant are your people with your process. So like now you have all these numbers. If you don't know how to use these numbers, like you said, and if you don't know how to implement it into your one-on-one meetings, into your sales training meetings, then the tool doesn't do anything. It's like having a wrench that you never pull out of the truck. The tool doesn't work if you don't use it. So
yeah,
that's the resistance that you get, being able to become a data-driven salesman.
Yeah, it makes total sense. I mean, well, listen, anytime you have to implement something new, it's not always easy because you're changing the process,
Yes.
right? Or somebody has to own the process.
Yes.
And if you're a smaller company, the person might be you, who's also doing the billing, who's also doing the repair work, who's also doing the whatever. Your first, maybe you don't do that with your first sales, with your first sales guy. Maybe you do. The process of implementing it, you don't have to figure out on your own, because my assumption is that you guys
Yeah.
will offer support
Yeah.
on to say, hey, here's best practice on implementation, or here's best practice, or here's the like you just mentioned the KPIs on talk speed,
Right.
which is fantastic that you've studied. You heard him say millions,
Yeah. Yeah.
millions
Yeah.
of these, and talk speed is important. But if I'm sitting there listening to him thinking, well, shit, that's just something else I got to coach on that I'm not capable of coaching on, because to me that's a behavioral
Yes.
thing. You can coach the behavior, but you have to get somebody to like
Oh
subconsciously
yeah.
start thinking, well, like, how can I speak a little bit slower in my I used to talk fast because I present a ton, and I had to really get used to having dramatic pauses
Yeah.
and slowing myself down, and then it does become a trained behavior where it becomes second nature to you. So, but the point is that if you have like these benchmarks and you have the way to implement it that you can give along with the service, regardless of what you're using. But if you're using this type of virtual ride along service to help coach your sales team be better, it's nice to be able to have like the playbook,
Yeah.
since we're talking sports analogies.
Yeah, no, and obviously, like, because we've launched with, so many customers, we understand what works, we understand what doesn't, and it's like when you're implementing any new technology, you have the technology partner ideally helping you implement the technology and helping you onboard it. So we have a whole way of like how we get the technicians involved, how we get the comfort advisors involved, how we get the sales managers and the service managers. How do we bring this? Because to us, what really matters, I don't care about the product. I care about what people do with the product. Are they bringing it into their sales training meetings? Are they best equipped to have run a really productive one-on-one meeting with their reps? Are they actually bringing it into their ride-alongs? Like, some of our managers are still doing physical ride-alongs, that they're recording those physical ride-alongs so that they can have it all accounted for and they can review the ride-along together with the rep afterwards. So there's all these little tricks that you could do with the technology. Just like, I mean, Nick Saban had the same kind of game film available to all the other coaches, but he was just so much better than anybody else because the technology just allowed him to really show his skills and be able to use the technology much more effectively than, like, if I was looking at some football game film. What the hell I'm not gonna do. I'm not gonna do anything with that. I'm gonna
It's it's first down. Punt it.
I'm gonna be like, where's the baseball bat? Somebody get this man a baseball bat. You would be able to throw the ball much farther if you could bat it. You know what I mean?
Well, I want to hit on something real quick too. I want to hit on something real quick that you just said. You said a few things. I've taken some notes, and my ADHD will kick in if I don't ask it. Just interrupt you and ask it. You were talking about analyzing game film. Like Coach Saban was talking about analyzing game film and then making a decision. And one of the questions you asked, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was around saying, "Hey, do you use analytics to make your decision?"
Yes.
And he talked about a fourth down play he had,
Yes.
where instead of trusting his gut based on years of studying all
Yes.
this stuff, he relied too much on
Yes.
the data and he made the wrong call from it. Remember
Yes.
that?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And so the data is to give you direction, the data is to give you benchmarks, right? But then you can adopt that into how you want to adopt it. Like, trust your gut on you are in your business. Use this as
Yeah.
your
Yeah. Yeah.
benchmark and as your tool.
So
So that's
no. So what I wanted to. So that is totally true. The data on its own, you can't just say, hey, I'm just going to do what the data tells me, because then what you're going to do is, like, on average in this situation, your talk ratio is supposed to be this on average. But let's say that you're talking to a particular type of profile of a customer, right? So we did a study, right, where it shows that there's literally a correlation between time in home, so how long is your conversation with a customer, and your conversion rate and your average ticket, right? This is all numbers on average, industry benchmarks, industry standard. So, like, what the graph shows is that the longer you wait in the home, like, the average length of a conversation for a replacement sale that sold is 2 hours, versus the ones that didn't sell is 1 hour and 1 hour and 15 minutes. So there's like 50 minutes separating the sold versus the not sold. And then the more you spend in the home, like 3 hours, 4 hours, the average ticket keeps going up to like $15,000, $18,000. We did this analysis for roofing. We did this analysis for home services like HVAC, plumbing, electrician. We've done this analysis every single way. It literally shows a correlation that talk time, there's correlation between talk time and average ticket increase and conversion rate increase. That doesn't mean that if you go into a home and you're talking to like a type A personality, a homeowner that's really, really busy, and they're like, hey, man, I want to do this right now. I called your company because I really trust you guys. I've done work with you. I don't need you to go through the whole presentation today, right? I don't need you to go. I'm busy. I have to leave in 30 minutes. So can you really just give me the price, cut to the chase? With you being like, the data is going to help you on the average, right? But you still have to make the call, right? You still have to make the call. Like Nick Saban said, you have to be able to look at the situation in the game and say, this is not the average situation. So the average numbers are not going to actually help me here. This is an uncommon situation, right? So
you made a really good point there. You just made another really good point. And so actually, I didn't think about this originally until you were just talking about it, because you've said it a couple times now. But um, something that I think is important that we've implemented into our business at Rhino is matching up the account manager in this situation, who's the right personality type for the customer.
yes.
So to your point, you have a type, or if you use a color code, maybe that's a red, or if it's
Mhm.
a disc profile, it's a D. But I do think that this also gives an opportunity to coach your sales team on how to, because really being a good salesperson also means you kind of need to be a good chameleon a little bit.
Yes.
You got to match personality types, and that's not always easy, especially I think with those that are quiet.
Oh yeah.
And if you're somebody who's like Sebastian, who's like really energetic and
Yeah.
stuff, like and you're a type, and you want to get from A to B like this, like that, he has to adjust the way he's talking to the customer in order for the customer to hear him in the way he wants them to hear him.
Yes.
So I think this actually gives a really good tool also to coach on how to overcome like different personalities. So that's another good thing I hadn't thought about.
Yeah. So like, and I wanted to make this point here while we're talking about data, where you're talking about Nick Saban. Nick Saban did look at the data. He knew all of the different things because the data is just a tool for him, right? And it's like sometimes when you're going to look at an HVAC unit, you're going to look at different tools to fix the equipment, right? Sometimes the equipment's broken in which way and what way, and you can't use the same equipment to fix this. You know what I mean? The same in sales, the same in sports. You don't use the same metrics every single time. You have to look at the situation and be really good at discovering the customer's pain points and so on and so forth. What I will say with Rilla is like one of the biggest resistance points that we get, not from our customers, but from people who have heard about Rilla but haven't bought it, is, oh my God, this is AI. I'm not with AI because AI is going to replace us. Like, it's going to replace my sales manager. It's going to replace my service manager. Rilla does not replace the sales manager or the service manager. In fact, if you don't have a manager who can actually use Rilla to coach, we will literally not even sell Rilla to you. Like, if you don't have somebody who can go in there and has the time to actually use this game film analysis and all these things, we will not sell. Rilla does not replace a sales manager. Rilla does not replace a service manager. Rilla is a tool for sales and service managers, for coaches, to go in there and do what Nick Saban was doing, which is reviewing game film, looking at analysis. We will give you a lot of data. We will give you a lot of data. We will tell you, here's the talk ratio, here's the talk speed, here's the talk time, here's your process, how they're implementing it 80% of the time, 50% of the time. We'll give you all these tools, but you need the manager to take all the information, just like Nick Saban did, and say, what is the best way that I can help this technician today in this one-on-one meeting? And we will make all the information available to you, but without the human being taking the data and turning the data into insightful feedback and coaching for the human being, Rilla does not work. So Rilla is just a tool. It is just a tool. And the champions who use Rilla, the coaches, those are the people that are driving all the impact, all the ROI, and all the things that we're seeing in terms of sales improvements. It doesn't work without that.
Yeah, I heard that loud and clear. So, because it's as good as the you know how to use the tool. Like, or if you're a player and you learn a skill, you got to use the skill. Like, I'll give an example too. My son, plays football. He's a wide receiver, and he's done tons of coaching. And I'll watch him go out there on the field and then not run the route the way he's been training it the whole time. He lost focus. So then he'll have to come back to the sideline, and the wide receiver coach will say, "Is that how you run the route?" No. Quarterback has to be able to trust that you're going to end up at a 10-yard out because he's throwing the ball before you get to the 10-yard and it's an out, or a post route or whatever. They have to be able to trust you. Well, you got to use your tools.
Yeah.
And they're giving you the tools to be better.
Right.
Like, that's what this is. Now, I want to go back to one thing that you said early on that I think is important. I don't want to overlook it. You had said, originally some of my first thoughts around it was like, one, it's going to be rejected, or there's going to be major objections from the salesperson.
Yeah.
And then two, what's the homeowner do they have to say agree? I don't agree. You already answered that question. The homeowner easily agrees to it now, especially. But here's what I think is that I think it's actually for the homeowner. They're like, absolutely, because I want you to record
Yes.
everything so we can reference that. So there's like a trust piece to
Oh
it. That's
yeah.
like, okay, sweet. Like, and for the salesperson, them saying, hey man, the call's recorded, I think actually brings the wall down
Oh yeah.
for the
Oh,
potential
but
prospect.
like just something surprising that we found. Most interactions in the home improvement industry between a technician or a salesperson and a homeowner are between a male technician or salesperson and a female homeowner. That is the majority of interactions. Like actually, we can measure this. So like way over 50%. I think it's like over 50, 60 or 70%. Like most of the interactions are between a male technician or salesperson and a female homeowner. You are a strange man in this female homeowner's home. They are naturally nervous when you're there. When you tell them, and we know this because some of our customers in California literally tell their customers, hey, just so you know, this is homeowner, I'm going to be recording all of our interaction today to make sure that I don't miss anything. I'm going to be taking pictures. I'm going to be documenting everything we talk about today to make sure that I'm doing everything by the book. And so if it's okay with you, I'm going to walk around. And then they just launch into I'm going to walk around, do an inspection, come back, present the issues. They just do it as part of their intro speech, right? Most 99.7% of the time, the homeowner says, "Oh my God, absolutely!" Like you can hear them like, "Oh my God, absolutely, yeah, go ahead." It's not like the resistance. We were surprised. We thought there was going to be resistance because one of my engineers, he visited his uncle in New Jersey, and his uncle said like, "Oh my God, if somebody came to my house and tried to record me, I would say hell no." And my engineer asked him like, "Well, uncle, have you had any home improvement done recently or whatever?" It's like, "Yeah, I had a guy," and he was like, "What company?" He was like, "Oh, that company's a Rilla user. They recorded your conversation." And then he goes, "Oh yeah, now I think about it, he told me he was recording." And he was like, "What did you say?" He was like, "Oh, I just told him to do it." People, like people in the moment, they don't care. They're like, "Do your thing, show me what you got, and get out of my house because I'm busy." That's what they're thinking. You know what I mean? So they don't care.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's what I said. Like, I could see how that's actually a total benefit to the homeowner because now they feel like they can trust you a little bit more. Like, you still got to earn it. Like, you still got to do
Yes.
some building of that relationship and building the trust and all those things. But at least that is helpful. That's the way I see it. I don't think see it as a deterrent at all. And even today, it seems like pretty straightforward. I mean, you listen every time you pick up a call. This call's being recorded for quality
Oh,
assurance.
dude, we had the funniest
Same.
interaction in Chicago. So Illinois is a two-party consent state. One of our reps, one of the Rilla reps who sells windows, he goes into the home. He says like, "Oh yeah, Miss Homeowner, we're going to be recorded for quality and training purposes." And the homeowner says like, "You being recorded?" And he goes, "Yes, yes, I am being recorded." And she goes, "No, no, no, you're not understanding me. I know you're being recorded on this end also. I'm recording you." And he goes, "Oh, you're recording me?" And she's like, "Mm-hmm." And it was like a Mexican standoff. It's like, "I'm recording you, you're recording me." And it was like such a funny moment. It's like homeowners are recording everything too, like the Ring cameras, the Alexas, everything. Nobody cares about the recording. Yeah, it's very funny.
So this has been great because I've learned a couple of new things on this thing, and I didn't think about, like I said, the personality test on how it could actually help with coaching
Yeah.
that. And by the way, listeners, if you're one who's like, if you don't know how to coach on it, that's okay. You're perfectly normal. It is a skill that has to be
Yes,
learned.
yes, yes.
Uh, Not everybody knows how to, overcome those things, but there's plenty of things that can help you. A color code is something that you can use. There's disc profiles that can be, and they actually give you tips or tricks or like trainings on how you could speak to someone based on their personality traits and things like that. It's actually fantastic, and we use it at Rhino quite a bit. Um, and if you've ever done one before, if you've done the color code, I'm a yellow, red, and if you have done disc, I'm a high ID.
Yeah.
So you can tell I like to have fun, but I just like to get shit done.
I'm a yellow red
So
too, man. Yellow reds. Power Rangers.
I could have guessed that in a heartbeat. So here's what I want to do, Seabass. One is thank you again. I said you at the beginning of this podcast that you guys are a sponsor and you've been supportive, and I do really appreciate that.
Thank
So
you.
thank
No,
you.
thank you. You've been putting on a great show, and I actually listen to the podcast a lot. So it's a great show. It's a great resource for people who want to learn anything about the home service world. So thank you for putting this
Yeah,
together.
I appreciate that. And like I said, I only, you didn't pay me to bring Sebastian on here. Yes, he's a sponsor on the podcast, but I pushed it regardless because I believe in the service. I believe
Yeah.
in the virtual ride along the whole virtual ride along like tool is amazing. If you use it, it really will help you coach your team and coach them to be better. And if that's truly what you're doing, and you say that, like this tool should help them. And the good news is Sebastian and his team can share some of those metrics where he says you go into month 1, month 2, month 3, and you start to see on the curve, that their sales are increasing. Well, if your sales are increasing, your commissions are increasing, your lives are increasing. And this tool helps coach you to that. And that's what it is. And that's the way you want to sell. Maybe I should just come sell for you.
Yeah, it's like what he said, ladies and gentlemen. Listen to him, the man with the hat on. Listen to him.
Now, that's it. I'm out of here. Sorry. So what I want to do to close this thing out too is just I do want to give you I appreciate you giving me your time to kind of come on as our subject matter expert in all things like virtual ride-alongs and these services. I like I said, I wholeheartedly believe that Rilla is the front runner in this service. But if somebody wants to get in touch with you or Rilla in general, what's the best way for them to contact you or contact the team, to get more information? And if there's any commitment, like if it's like a month, a 3 month, a year, or whatever, if there's any commitment, maybe just share what that is as well.
Yeah, so for people who are interested in Rilla, go to rilla.com. That's RILLA.com and book a demo with one of our highly trained sales consultants. We use Rilla on every single one of our calls, so hopefully they're giving you the best of experiences. I actually review most of the calls on Rilla, one of the Rilla power users, so I'm reviewing calls all night, all the time. So I will probably see you if you go into the call, and I'll make sure that they tell you to say hello. And then if you're interested in just like some of the insights that we've published around conversations in the home and how to improve your sales and your service, we have the Rilla Labs. So you can find the Rilla Labs on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or you could just go to rilla.com/Rilla Labs. And we talk about the science of sales and the science of selling based on data from millions and millions of conversations that we've analyzed in the home. So yeah, rilla.com.
Shit. I was Rilla Labs. I was remember I was out there for some management meetings for a few weeks, and I was supposed to come over and do a podcast in studio with you, but then I got a little bit I got my focus shifted because my management team was all there, and so it went sideways. But and we weren't that far. We were just down in the financial district. But one last question I was thinking I wanted to ask you too. But and again, I think that this is the best tool for coaching in this platform. And it's something that you can use and fix now that you don't have to spend another dollar on like marketing. Like you can use this as an actual coaching tool. But one thing that I was just thinking about, and I almost forgot to ask it because I have really shitty handwriting and I can barely read my own writing right now. But it was, if one of the contractors was using the tool and the salesperson was actively in the sales call, are they able to drop in and listen to that thing through any of the software, like as it's going on? I swear that's exactly what KPost did when I was there, and I could hear the call going on.
So we experimented with real time. So we're gonna bring it back, but it's not real time right now. But we are bringing real-time ride-alongs sometime soon. That was an experiment because KPost is one of our early customers, and we give them all the little toys and gadgets before they're available to everybody else. So yes, real-time ride-alongs, they're coming soon. Yeah.
You heard it here, not first, but real-time ride-along coming soon. Well, Sebastian, I appreciate you, man. I see Will behind you. Tell Will I said what's up.
Hey.
Will, but I said to our listeners, think about it like this. I push all the time on making sure that you're coaching your CSRs, because to Sebastian's point, you do all these things up to the process where it matters most. I would argue that there's 2 points that matter most. One is the CSR coaching and training. Your CSR's got to book the call, right? So that's one way of doing it. The homeowners, or if the salesperson's in the home, they got to book the sale. They got to close the sale. And those are 2 critical points. So this is, to me, is as important as getting your CSR coaching in check, because these are 2 things that you don't have to spend more money on marketing, where you can just increase your close ratios, which will increase your revenue, which pays dividends long term, right? Whereas marketing got to spend for your marketed leads, and maybe continue to increase. This should also create coaches within from their peers on the sales team to help one another. So it's legit like a fantastic coaching tool to help your to do what's best for your staff to help them be better for your company overall. So don't forget to reach out, to Sebastian or to Rilla, the whole team. Check out Rilla Labs too. Obviously, you hear Sebastian; he brings the energy. He's probably got some more really shitty jokes he'll tell on that.
Yes.
But again, I appreciate you, man. I will see you at Pantheon here in just a few weeks. And to all of our listeners, he dropped enough nuggets in here too that you can take one or two things away from this. And you got to look at this like this is not an expense on the P&L. It is an investment into your team and into your sales and into your growth. And that's what this coaching tool is. So Sebastian, man, I appreciate you coming on, brother.
Thank you, man. Such a fun time. Appreciate it.
Yep. And to all of our listeners, you don't got to do everything, but you got to do something. No 0 days.